Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So today's Monday, Act 7 drops on Wednesday. And before I get into Act 7, I kind of want to talk about my personal expectations, the things that I'm somewhat worried about, and overall kind of like, set my plan together so you guys are staying informed, so you guys know exactly what my thought process is in going into Act 7. And also to inform all of you that I have made a decision. I will not go for Legends Run and 7.1. What I will do is I will start the stream pretty much immediately as Act 7 launches, or an hour later depending on my schedule. And I'm just gonna get it done as quickly as I can. Within the next couple of days, I plan to have it explored 100% so I can provide as many guides and reviews and so on and so forth. So typically, I do a review video for every new chapter. My overall thoughts, what I liked, what I didn't like, what felt great, what didn't. This time, I think ABAM has done quite a great job building up some level of anticipation. And I'm actually very excited and looking forward to this piece of content, especially because it has gotten a lot of great reviews from people who did end up beta testing it. I was not one of them. I have absolutely no real experience in Act 7, therefore I also might have a bit different perspective. Now, there are a lot of new nodes and buffs and a lot of information taken. And that is also my first impression, that there is an overwhelming information and overwhelming amount of information that players need to keep in mind. And I'm not a big fan of that. I do like an enjoyable content that has new plots and twists and stuff like that. But once you add too many new nodes, too many new buffs, it kind of feels like you're having to do a lot of homework and there's just a ton of things to learn. And then at the end of it, half of that becomes irrelevant. I think the best example here would be 6.3. 6.3, in my opinion, was a very bad design, where those buffs, those boosts that we had to use, we had to figure out which paths they're meant for, what champions support them, and then we had to keep in mind like basically which classes are supported by what abilities, and it just was a lot of information to process, and it kind of like confused a lot of people. And I do generally believe that pretty much majority of the people don't use those boosts because it was just too complicated and too much of a hindrance. Yes, there were like 3 or 4 that were important, but in total we got like 12 of them or 18 of them or something like that. And it just was a fail. And that was my worry here as well, where every class is gonna get some sort of buffs on some lanes or some quests, and then we're gonna have new boss debuffs. And I now finally did kind of like go through it all. And there are a couple of buffs that definitely strike me immediately as being completely OP. The debuff purification, without a doubt, is going to be useful, but the one that interests me most in skill category would be whenever a skill attacker is blocked, they have a 50% chance to passively stun the defender for 2 seconds. The stun chance is increased by 10% for every 5 hits on the attacker's combo meter. Now, this seems crazy good. That means that you will basically have Apocalypse's ability to block break at any given time, pretty much. And if you have that 50% chance to passively stun from get-go as is, and you can hit up to 4 times an opponent's block, then you're pretty much going to be able to stun any single target. So you're never going to have to worry about intercepting or finding openings. So I think this is going to be extremely powerful and handy. The rest of them, again, obviously will have some sort of uses. None of the mystic buffs really kind of like blew me out or got too much of my attention. The cosmic buffs are quite clearly designed to increase cosmic champions' damage output absolutely crazy. And I think the biggest one here is going to be the impatience. Whenever cosmic attacker fails to trigger a buff due to chance, they have 100% chance to trigger a fury buff instead, increasing attack by 80% for 7 seconds. Now that combined with Hyperion sounds completely crazy, because Hyperion's heavy attack has 5 hits. So you will end up with 5 Furies guaranteed every single time. Because whether you trigger it and this node does nothing, or you don't trigger it and this node kicks in and gives you a Fury buff. And So you get that 80% attack increase. That's crazy, right? Considering also the Hyperion signature ability lets him to extend the duration of all buffs on him. Yeah, he's likely gonna hit like a tank and gonna be an absolute beast for that one. The rest of the buffs also do look quite impressive and all good and all fine and all that, but this one immediately struck me as like Hyperion's gonna have a field day and some insane numbers here because he's gonna be spamming Furies like nobody's business. Right, the mutant ones, again, they're fair enough. They seem to be good enough. They're gonna be interesting, but I think this is gonna be the master of cheese buff. The power suppression one is gonna be the center of some of the craziest and cringiest videos that will be uploaded shortly after this quest goes live. Basically, whenever a science attacker activates special attack, they apply an underweight debuff to the defender for 6 seconds. Now, for those of you who do not know what underweight does, is basically prevents opponents from gaining power from, hits, from getting hit. So it's kind of like power lock, just a watered down version, preventing them from gaining power on struck. Well, here we go. I shouldn't have said that. Whenever this underweight would expire, it consumes an active debuff on the defender to reapply itself. So here we go. What does this mean? That means that as soon as you launch a special attack with any science champion that has access to debuffs, you will quite simply power lock them effectively. And at that point, you can start spamming heavy attacks while they're in corner, and that's it. That will be the fight over. You will just drop heavy attack after heavy attack after heavy attack after heavy attack after heavy attack till opponents die, provided those heavy attacks do apply some sort of debuff on the opponent. So any champion that applies a debuff with their heavy attack in science class will be able to infinitely spam heavy attacks in corner, and that just sounds so corny, that just sounds so cheesy, and I like it. I think it's gonna be a very fun time there. Now, the rest of the buffs, again, some of them I'm sure they will be useful, but we're gonna be talking about the new nodes for buffs, and a lot of them do seem quite annoying. For most part, I don't have too many objections. That bullet time definitely will be a tricky thing to deal with. Rekindling sounds, not rekindling, redlining. Redlining actually sounds very, very interesting because it does both. It helps you and it penalizes you. And there are not too many buffs and nodes that actually can help you too much. But this one is the one that could help you significantly. So when an attacker has more than 33% of their max power, they gain power gain passive, which raises their combat rate by 100%. If the attacker has more than 75% of their max power, they are immediately power drained down to 0. So you're gonna get more power whenever you go from 1 bar of power basically to 2 bars of power, but if you go too far into 2.5 bars, let's say, you're gonna lose all your power. So the trick is there going to be, obviously you will never ever be able to get to a level 3, so not a single champion who relies on having access to level 3 will be viable for that fight or for that node, because you will physically never gonna be able to reach that level 3 unless you're immune to power drain. But at the same time, you will be able to get to your level 2s much quicker, which does sound great. Now, this Tantrum, not a big fan, it does sound quite annoying. But the more annoying ones here, I think, start. Special Burst Lockdown, I think, is there primarily to mess with Ghost. Whenever the defender activates special attack, the attacker is affected with both heal block and armor break debuff lasting 10 seconds, reducing armor rating by 35. So it's quite simple. Ghost is a no-go, and Suicide Masteries, unless you have full immunities, is a no-go as well. And I really dislike this design. I think this node shouldn't be here. Not a big fan at all. Not because it's going to be hard, just because it's going to be annoying. It effectively eliminates one of the top attackers, which is fair enough. And then it just punishes anybody who likes to use Suicide Masteries. So yeah, not a fan. Wish this node wouldn't be there. Rust and Ruin is very simple. Whenever the defender is struck, 40% chance to inflict armor break. Again, that's just quite purely no ghost. Simple as that. Other than that, some of these things will be helpful to trigger willpower heal, but I just don't like how they seemingly target one of the more popular attackers. Because if you look at like top 10 most used champions. No other champion than Ghost will have issues with these armor breaks, but armor breaks seems to be kind of very common theme here. Now we have something that gets you faltered, which is annoying, and Mercy. I think Mercy is a horrible node design. It's one of those nodes that feature 90% attack reduction, which I absolutely hate. I wish Kabam never came up with it, and I wish we would never see a single node featuring 90% damage reduction used in this game ever. It's lazy, it's bad, it's annoying, and I do not think that anyone, not a single person, will actually say this is a good, well-designed node or just fun to play around with it, whatever. The base idea, whenever that attacker avoids a hit with a dexterity mastery, they gain a mercy passive. Whenever you parry, you transfer your mercy passives to the opponent. This each lasts 1.5 seconds, and unless you have mercy passives on the opponent, they take 90% less damage. If the defender has mercy passives, then you get 80% attack rating for their special attacks, but oh no. Yeah, that's about it. So for vast majority of the fight, you will have 90% reduced damage, and then you're going to have small windows of opportunity where you basically have your regular damage plus 80% attack rating in special attacks only. And another reason why I really dislike this design is because of unintentional parries. When you are trying to kind of like control the fight, you often parry by accident, and then you cannot take full advantage of this window. So I don't like the idea of parry being the transfer. But hey, yeah, I just don't like this node at all. That's all I'm gonna say there. There's a bunch of other nodes. Some of them sound more problematic, some of them sound less problematic. Overall, I must say I'm still obviously quite excited to deal with all of this, to see what kind of lane and path combinations there are. I have heard on kind of like the grapevine that the difficulty level isn't going to be too hard and completion run's going to be quite easy, so I definitely look forward to it. And I'll be honest, I don't mind if the content is hard or challenging. The thing that I care for, whether the content is fun. Like, I'm not the kind of guy who I don't want to use a single revive or anything like that. I will mess up, but if I'm going to enjoy doing the piece of content, I will generally not mind. Like, Variant 5 has several tricky fights, several fights that have few good answers for or very demanding playstyles. But Variant 5 overall felt like a really fun piece of content, and so do most of the variants. However, Act 6 always has felt absolutely miserable for most part. There are bits that are fun, but for the most part it just felt very cheap, underhanded, annoying, and bad. And I hope that is the biggest thing. I do hope that Kabam has managed to make these new acts feel more like variants, where in future content creators will actually be able to bring in champions and have some testing done. Because in Act 6, whenever a new champion comes out, like out of every single chapter in Act 6, new champion typically can be brought in a couple of the easier lanes, and then the rest of the bullshit catches up and you can't even really properly test champions in Act 6. That's why many people just go back to Act 5, for instance, or constantly use the same 4 or 5 quote-unquote easy lanes that we can find in Act 6. But yeah, I am hopeful. Definitely, I'm much more hopeful than I was before. There's gonna be a lot of interesting things. I'm also happy to see some of these champion mashups come back. We're gonna have our old favorite Ice Phoenix, Gwen Pyrian, Spider Witch, Punishing Angel, Night Carnage, Electro Luke. So definitely look forward to dealing with those guys as well. I always liked the idea of these champion mashups that they did. It is a shame that they have done so little with them, because I believe they always have been a really great successful hit. And speaking on the random side, the last thing that I'm going to say, I do hope that they bring back Bubbleheads at some point. I think Bubbleheads was a great little thing that they did, and I would love to see them in one quest in Act 7 somewhere. I don't know. Yeah, I definitely love for the Bubbleheads to be a part of permanent content where we can always go in there and just have a bit of fun. But yeah, I think that'll do for today's video. Let me know what are your expectations for Act 7. What are going to be the things that you look out for? Do you plan to jump in it straight away? And don't forget, I'm gonna be doing it live as soon as it comes out, so definitely don't miss that live stream. I'm gonna see you guys soon.